Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Glad to have you back. Hope you're listening. Hope you're enjoying. Hoping you're on YouTube. Sometimes I want you to watch this visually when you can. Hope you're maybe listening in your car. Don't listen to YouTube if you're in the car, but get active in this podcast. This is a series and it's a continuation of a conversation trying to get you where you need to be so that you live the life you want. Now, let's talk about today I want to talk about this idea of retirement for a moment. And I'm not going to spend forever on retirement, but everyone loves the word retirement. Like it's this idea that has been created and it doesn't exist, but it's this idea that's been created and it's kind of created this monster. I live with a dad. My dad, my entire life just said, I want to retire someday. Like he literally from the time I remember being a child, big, small child, he would say, I just want to retire. Boy, the day I get to retire. He was so excited about retiring, so excited about stopping. And, this whole concept of like, and maybe that's one of the reasons I don't like retirement is like that thought of like, and then my mom's the other side. My mom's like this, like she's never going to retire. Right? She's like, she loves being at it. And maybe I definitely take after that more, but the point is not to talk about my background, but to talk about this idea of retirement. Now, understand that a lot of cultures don't have a word for retirement. They don't have a word for it. It doesn't really exist. But what happened is we've created this, when FDR signed into Social Security and we created an age, right? We created this age, this fictitious age, and it's this age of 65, right? That's the age that we retire at. And the financial world has weaponized this against us. And I've said that before because in a sense what it did was it gave them a timeline. It gave them a timeline that they could use to scare the holy world out of you. And so they weaponized it to say, like, you must be accumulating this much or you're going to be in dire straits. And it's this, we're coming out of COVID as I'm recording this. And one of the things I've said is was a fear mindset intentionally set that was given out, and this idea of like scaring the world out of everybody. And while it wasn't, there was a reason for it, it still was like, having the presence of mind to know that some of this is being used to scare the world out of us. And the financial industry is kind of the same way, right? They've basically been able to create a story to scare the world out of you. That if you don't save so much by this date, you're going to be right on the streets or, And so they've been able to have a conversation with you about you must accumulate this much. And the reason why I don't love that conversation is because it's really led a lot of people down the wrong road. And I guess, maybe the days of pension where you worked at, I could give it some credit in that regard. You worked at General Electric and at the age of 65, you got your pension and maybe even the military. I mean, there's some companies with true pensions. And so, I could see yourself being at a place where you said, hey, when I get my pension, then that's technically the day that I get to stop. But I don't love it because this idea of creating this age, because I believe that what happens is I want you to hear something about the sales industry. The sales industry does it's something crazy and staggering. So 80%, if you're in a sales position, you'll do 80% of your sales from October to December. Now, why do you think that is? Why do you think that you would do the vast majority of your sales at the end of the year? Well, the reason you would do that is because you've got what? All year, right? And so January comes and it looks like this. January comes and you're like, coming out of the holidays, I could use a little extra time. It takes a little time to get going. And, you know, I've kind of got to get going and get my goals for the year. And then before you know it, it's spring break and you're like, well, you know, you're just about getting by the way, it takes 90 days typically in a sales cycle before somebody closes. So then it's like by the time March comes around, we actually start getting some activity going. But then the summer comes and it's time to get on the boat and then it's time for vacation. And so all these things basically slow us down. And then all of a sudden what ends up happening is that we get to this place where it's like, okay, well, oh my gosh, it's September and I'm not even close to hitting my sales number. So then that's when stuff gets going. It happens in dental practices all the time too. The truth is that this number has killed more wealth in so many ways than it's created. And it's allowed people to have this timeline to, in a sense, sit back. Because if I change that timeline, if the age was 45, wouldn't people be saving more at 21? Wouldn't people be more aggressive at the age of 25? Wouldn't they be? Of course they would. In fact, I will tell you that the vast majority of people's wealth is created from the age of 55 to 65. That's a fact. Even Warren Buffett himself, 99% of his net worth was created after the age of 59. The truth is that most people don't really start actually moving the wealth needle till they're about 51 to 55. And so what this idea of 65 anyhow slowed people down from actually, because they said that they've got time. You come out of college in your 20s, right? You spend a few years, you go to dental school, and then you know, by the time you're 30, you're an associate somewhere. You spend a few years as an associate. And then all of a sudden what happens is you get your own dental practice and you go $500,000 in debt. And then you buy a house, but then that house isn't big enough for your growing family. And then you feel like you need to be part of the country club because, you know, and then it's a doctor can't live in a home like this. And then before you know it, you've got 4 kids, country club dues, and you've got the cars to match the lifestyle. And then all of a sudden, by the way, you get about 50 and the kids are moving out and going to college and you wake up and you go, man, I'm just not where I'm supposed to be. But interestingly enough, you are actually the average person. When people come to me when they're 52, 53 and they go, oh my gosh, Eric, I need your help. I should be so much further along than where I'm at. But the truth is that's actually most people. And that's what you need to understand. The financial world will tell you it's not, but it's true. It's actually most people they wait until they're 50, 53, 52, right? That's why we have catch-up periods with our 401k because I know people didn't save enough money over the time. And so now financial advisors might love to hear that part of the conversation, right? Start early. Because it is true, by the way, if you start early, you have massively more wealth. Like it's something crazy. I think I just saw something. Don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but it was like if you saved from like 24 to 29 or something, or 22 to 29, you would have a few $1 million. But if you saved from all the way from like 35 to 65, you would have less money than the 20-year-old. And so I can come back and give you the exact numbers, but the point is the compound interest is a huge tool. It's a huge tool. And so, but here's the thing. Now you might be saying, well, Eric's saying just save. I'm actually not. I'm just saying that if we really, our goal should be, I want to be in a position to where I don't have to work. Isn't that the goal anyhow? I mean, we were told to save so that we can get to the place where we don't have to work anymore. And so what we do is we create this beast of a business that we created to basically give us more time, but it ended up taking up all our time. We thought we'd have less stress. We have more stress. And then we haven't saved enough, and we feel like we haven't gotten. Does that sound like you? Because I want to tell you that's the vast majority of doctors. But here's some good news. I'll tell you a story of what I mean. So let me give an example of what I mean, why traditional advice is not the right advice, and why I'm trying to say that I don't like the age of 65. And so I had a guy come to me years ago. He was in his 80s. He was a doctor. And he had come to me because he said, my financial advisor told me that I would never be able to retire and that I would need to work for the rest of my life. And in that time, by the way, he was acquiring another practice at this time. And he was literally expanding his debt dramatically. And all he wanted to do in his 80s was be able to pull away. But he couldn't, and he felt like he had not accumulated enough. He had roughly $800,000 in accumulation over his lifetime. And so he had about $800,000, which is not enough, right? That's probably like $3,200 a month in income. That's pre-tax, not enough to really get you where you want. And so he was like, my financial advisor said I can never retire. So I looked at this guy and I said, well, why did he tell you that? He owed $400,000 on this building. $400,000, but that rental income, the payment, by the way, was $8,200. And so he was just kept paying this payment. So I said, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we take $400,000, which of course the financial advisor fought me on because that's where they get paid. We'll take $400,000 out of your investment account. We'll pay off this building. We'll sell the practice to this new dentist. We'll put a long-term lease in place, and you will get $8,200, which, by the way, is the equivalent of about $2 million in an investment account. You'll get $2 million. You'll get $8,200 a month, like I said, which is roughly like having $2 million in an investment account. Still have $400,000 in cash, plus Social Security, and you'll technically, and then plus whatever proceeds we get from selling the practice, and you'll never have to work again. Instantly, he went from a place where he was about to take on more debt and grind even longer and harder to a place where he instantly, by the way, within 60 days, he was able to retire. But you don't have to wait till you're 80. You can do that now. And that's the message I want to give you of this podcast. Where am I going with all this? I want you to hear me because I think you can have that now. I deal with people that are in their 30s and 40s that are able to create that life. Because if you stop listening to your financial advisor and you start actually looking at the numbers, you say, well, all I want to do is create enough passive cash flow to allow me to have the life I want. And once I've done that, then technically I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. So the deal is that it takes me 20 years on the average person, 20 years to save $1 million, which only gives me about $4,100 a month at 5%. Or I can go use my asset. Basically, I can utilize my income now to buy assets that would give me that, and it won't cost me anywhere near that much money. So what I don't love the age of 65 is that we've put off what we can do today. We've created this fictitious line. You know, you're listening to this right now thinking, I guarantee you're listening to this thinking, well, I've got till I'm 65. Tell me you're not. Of course you are. You're saying, I got till age 65. Why is 65 the number? Because someone just told you it was. And so you just said, okay. It was created by the way, it was created by Social Security Administration. It was created by somebody else. It wasn't created by you. It's a fictitious number you made up, and you decide you were going to live by it. And because you've given yourself to the age of 65, just like the salesperson who gives themselves to October to produce, you don't accumulate true wealth until you're about 50, 55 years old. And so you still don't actually create the wealth and the life you want. You put it off listening to someone who's basically trying to take all your money, put it into an investment account so that they can have what they call assets under management. So some financial advisor can have assets under management so that they can get wealthy and not you. Now, I'm not saying all financial advisors are bad, by the way. Please don't take that. I think there's some great financial advisors out there. I think there's a lot of people doing great work. But you have to be in control and know what's happening. So I want you to change this 65 paradigm. and get rid of it. First of all, like people like me, like I'm not, like I will be doing something till the day I leave this world. Like I won't ever stop. Now I will have the ability to come and go when I want. I will have the money to be able to come and go when I want. I will have the infrastructure, the leadership team, and the things in place to be able to come and go as I want, so that I get to live the life I want, the quality of life I want, the way I want, how I want. And that's what you want. You're listening to this podcast because you know that what you really want is have the money and the time to do the things you love. Why wait? Why wait? What's the point of waiting? Why do we want to wait? Let's do it now. Let's do it now. Let's get after it now. Don't settle. Let's get after it now. Let's go do the things we need to every single day. And by the way, wealth is not something you wake up and flip a switch. It's something you do every day. It's a habit you create. And that habit that you create over a period of time has dramatic results. But it starts today. And it starts with your mindset. And if you change your mindset, you'll change the future. Guys, thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed. Get involved. Get involved. Listen, make sure you're listening to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Make sure you're catching up on old episodes. Make sure you're sharing with the friends. Make sure you're watching this. Sometimes if you're listening to it all the time, you're missing an element because you don't get to see my passion and my energy as I sit in front of this camera. So make sure that you're sharing it. Share it with a friend. Share it with a colleague. Say, hey, look, there's something you should listen to. I think it would be really, really helpful. Create masterminds around it, create conversations around it, and let me know if I can help. You guys have a great one. We'll talk to you next time.